All right, to quote our friend Gary Bettman, Ray Ferraro, Richard Deitch, John Shannon, we are on the clock again. As we wait for the draft to occur, Connor Bedard will be the number one pick going to Chicago. Ray, let's talk about Chicago. Taylor Hall is now a Chicago Blackhawk.
Yeah.
What does that mean for Taylor Hall? What does that mean for Connor Bedard? And what does that mean for Blackhawk fans?
Well, so for Taylor, I'm sure he was, you're aware and of the likelihood that you were going to be the guy they were going to have to move to create some cap space. I think that's just the first part of it in Boston, that, they're going to have to go a little deeper here to create some room. So it could be anywhere that you get traded. He had that no trade list, but there was, I think, just 15 teams on it, I believe.
Yeah.
And so that opens up half the league that you could go to. When you go to a rebuilding team as an older player, you might not know it yet, but when you get there and you look around and you lose and lose and lose, and you see that you're not the future, like the future, you're a bridge. And it takes, I had that, of course, at the end of my career. I was just, playing as long as I could play. And I realized that 3 seconds into my time in Atlanta, that if this is ever going to be any good, it's going to be long after I'm gone. These kids have to grow, they have to develop. It's hard. Now, Taylor's at the point as well that, by the deadline, what if a team says, you know what, we could have him for this and next playoff run.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they keep him through next year, then maybe the following year's trade deadline, he would be a chip for them. It's an odd time as you're an older player. The time you'd like stability is when you don't need it. Or rather, the time you have stability is when you don't need it. And that's when you're young. When you need it is when you're older and married and kids and all that. And then good luck. It doesn't happen that way. So, he's going there. Of course, they've got to get to the cap floor. They signed Foligno for $4 million. So between the two of them, there's $10 million. They want to put some people around Connor Bedard so he's not slogging through things all by himself. It's not an easy thing. Now, I know lots of people say, well, too bad you make $6 million and you're in the NHL. It still doesn't make it easy. And so that'll be a little bit of a headspace cleaner for him over the next couple of months for sure.
Right, I want to ask you about something that's really of interest to me at the draft, and hopefully I'm not going to mangle his name. You pronounce the Russian player Michkov, who's
yes, Matvei Michkov.
Matvei Michkov. Okay, he's a really interesting sort of selection here for teams, because you have to sort of navigate when he would come over during a normal global period. But what we have now is not normal. The Russians have invaded Ukraine. The geopolitical situation there is really up in the air. And so if you're an NHL team, Ray, how do you evaluate this? Because you know what the skill level is of the player, but you're dealing with circumstances that, basically speaking, have never been duplicated. So do you roll the dice, right, and take what is a clear talent, or do you play it safe and live with the fact that if this player turns out to be, the next Ovechkin, okay, we made a mistake. You know what I mean? Like, I personally don't know what the right decision would be if I was in management, because these are the kind of decisions that can get you fired if you get it wrong.
Correct. If I have a second first round pick, I'm taking Michkov right away, because I can insulate myself a little bit with that. I saw him play at the World Juniors. I don't know, it would have been 3 years ago, I guess now. Would that been? No, 2 years ago. They all kind of jumbled together there. This kid can play. He can score. He wants to score. He's dynamic. My sense is I think he's too good to pass up. And here's the other thing. You draft an 18-year-old player, by the time he becomes a factor in your lineup, unless he's a very rare talent, he's 20 or 21 anyway.
Right.
So the contract is going to play itself out. Now, geopolitically, I mean, like, who the heck knows, right? I mean, I hear you, but I think I would have a tough time saying, "Oh yeah, he's the next Ovechkin," and I let him slide by. I mean, no, I mean, not to say that this is the thing, because it's not, but I just watched the movie Air last week. Michael Jordan went third.
Yeah, I know.
Oops.
Yeah. Well, but I mean,
The
I was
second
talking to
pick
a
was the one that let it slide by. Oops.
That's right. I was talking to a manager yesterday and about Mishkov, and he said, "Well, hold on now. Do you think Minnesota regrets taking Kirill Kaprizov?"
Right.
I mean, and how long did it take? And Chuck Fletcher was the manager that drafted him, and it didn't cost him his job. There was a few other things, but
it was 5 years, right? Right.
It was 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years, and now cornerstone of the franchise and has kept them afloat, right?
Yeah.
I just think, it seems like the first three picks are going to be, Bedard, of course, Fantilli and Carlson. And if you're sitting there at 4, it's going to be a tough pass. The kid is a terrific player. He really is.
The other team that seems to be in a state of flux right now that I don't know whether Craig Conroy should be happy to be the manager of the Calgary Flames or miserable. It's a job he always wanted, but he's been he's in a hornet's nest now. Ray, how do you manage what's going on in Craig's mind and what the Flames have to do?
Well, when the players that are there have given you their direction that they're not going to re-sign, the only thing I think Craig can do is, as much as it's unpalatable and you don't want to, is say, this is opportunity. You don't really have a choice. Here's the thing. This year, last year, the year before, whatever it was, it feels like the Flames need a refresh. To me, it feels like things need to just be refreshed, new. And if that means you're moving some of these players that say they're not going to re-sign with you, then move them, become younger, become more energetic. I think the Flames had started to be yesterday's team. They were a little slower. They, certainly they lose Gaudreau and Tkachuk in the same summer. You're not going to be the same team. So now has to be an opportunity to look at some of your younger players and get them into the league, see what they can do. But also, you're not necessarily trading some of the guys that say they're not going to come back and trading them for futures for 5 years from now. Like you can, if you decide you can't, or figure out you can't sign Noah Hannafin, would you not look for a player in Noah's age range? You're not looking for a guy that's 29. Like, this is a time to refresh. And as much as they might not want to do it, I think opportunity has to be the way that you would look at it, which would be the same in Winnipeg. I'm like, I think you have to look at it as, this is an opportunity to change the way we look and play, and maybe the way people look at us.
I like Winnipeg's core better, though. I don't know. That's just me. When you think of Kyle
Well,
Connor,
it depends. What's your
and Adam Lowry?
What's your core
Josh
after
Morrissey.
what's your core after those other guys leave?
No, but I mean, if you get rid of, well, first of all, I expect them to buy out Blake Wheeler, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, I think
I
think that's a given. But when you look past the 4 guys that are supposed to be going, Dubois, Wheeler, Hellebuck, and Scheifele, I like that second tier of players in Winnipeg with Kyle Connor and Josh Morrissey and Nick Ehlers and Adam Lowry. I think that's a pretty good foundation to begin with, don't you think?
I do. I mean, if Cole Perfetti is a player too, and
if he stays healthy,
he had a nice start, and then he, poor kid got hurt again, and and like maybe that takes some time till you find your health lane, and hopefully it does for Cole. But I think Winnipeg. I agree with you. I think Winnipeg's also got the assets that are going to bring back a better return than what Calgary's going to have to move, and what they're going to get back. Like, if they decide to move, if Dubois is indeed gone in the next 48 hours, and somewhere down the line, Hellebuck and Scheifele go, you're talking about significant return here. You're not pitching around the edges of the draft.